Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies got blown out by the Jazz and have now fallen to 0-5 on the season and are reeling. On this episode, I will break down the game and talk a lot about the team issues and also discuss the addition of Bismack Biyombo. And to help me do so, I am joined right now by Shawn Coleman, master of Grizzlies stats, a great Grizzlies analyst in his own right. Shawn, good morning. How's it going?
Good morning. I'm Padawan. You're master. I'll be Padawan in this case.
No,
I've said it before. The inspiration for me being able to do this came from following you for years. So I'm going to give credit where credit's due.
All right. So maybe I inspired you, but peek behind the curtain. You absolutely 100% helped me on Wednesday night when I went to stat and had to do like my normal Grizzlies stats lookup. When the Grizzlies were down 42-19 at the end of the first quarter, yeah. I was like, I know that's not the record, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the worst first quarters in Grizzlies franchise history. And I went to StatHead and the things were changed. And I'm like, wait, where do I look for my stats? And I made a cry on social media and you answered the cry and you showed me exactly where I could find the answer. So while I might have started your journey, your Padawan journey,
yes, sir.
I believe the pupil might have overtaken the master.
Hey. Well, the point is we're here today and being able to enjoy it. But Keith, I'll ask you this question. You talk about, grind. Have you ever, I've listened to, Fast Break Breakfast. I've listened to Grits and Grinds. Have you ever just openly wept on a podcast? Because I'm feeling like this morning it could be empowering. It could be freeing if we did that together.
Shawn, I was live on playback when DeAnthony Melton got traded.
Okay, fair enough. Never mind. Got it. I got you. I saw you on camera after Grayson Allen got traded. So I've seen pure elation. I just there's been openly weeping. That's going on.
I was live on playback during that draft, and I got a text that came simultaneously with the Woj bomb that they were trading DeAnthony Melton, and it was crushing. And honestly, haven't been okay since then.
This isn't to that level, but
it isn't to that level. No, I think it's coping, Shawn, because this Grizzlies team, they frustrate me so much.
They do. Yeah.
And like, I don't love watching them play. And obviously no one loves watching their team lose 5 straight, but I've gotten to the point where like, I'm not mad. I'm in the same state I was basically last year in the playoffs or last year after Steven Adams and Brandon Clark went down for the year, where I'm like, our depth stinks. And now it's like, when your depth stinks and then you suffer injuries, well, that's when it matters, quite obviously, and it's like, I wasn't arguing last year. I was like, hey, our top 6 is intact, so we should be good. But then when something happens, when you lose Steven Adams, when Ja Morant gets hurt, when Ja Morant gets suspended, and then you're like, well, now we're playing guys who aren't that good. And so like this whole season, I've been like, I don't know. I know my coping mechanism as a person is to check out emotionally. My wife will confirm that, where I'm like, I don't like dealing with bad things. And so I'm watching the Grizzlies team where I'm like, man, I don't like watching these guys play, but also, like, what are you going to do? Jacob Gilyard is playing in the first quarter. So I mean, how are you taking this 0-5 start?
Just kind of weathering the storm, I guess. And And listen, the Grizzlies are worse than many of us anticipated. I'll be the first to admit they're worse than I anticipated. I think Zaire's been fine so far, but beyond that, you're correct. Like, we're not getting anything from the 2022 draft as of right now. Roddy's done okay. But at the end of the day, for both of us who love stats, it's just simple math. When the Grizzlies are a defensive first team, so they're structured to play with the lead. But if they're shooting 33% in the first quarter, meanwhile, they're giving up threes at a historically bad rate to the opposing team, simple math is just going to tell you, with our bench being where it is right now, we're not going to be able to make up being behind early. And that's what's hurting us. And go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to stop you to interject. You said defensive first team.
That's also a good point. Yes.
And I would like to further emphasize, I think it was a common opinion. It was my opinion. We're going to miss Ja Morant, but guess what? Here's the silver lining. Yep. When Ja Morant's not around, and we have Marcus Smart and Jaren Jackson Jr., defensive players of the year, we're going to be good at defense. We're actually going to be great at defense when Ja Morant is not around, because Ja Morant, poor defender. The Grizzlies are last in the NBA in defense through 5 games.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, going after the Denver game.
Oh, I'm sorry. I messed up my stats. We're last in offense, but we're, I believe we're 20. We're now down to like 22nd in defense. We're not good at defense. Sorry.
But to your point, so after that Denver game, the starting lineup looked like it was good in terms of defense. It looked like it was doing its job. But what we are is we're last in 3-point defense in terms of allowing the most threes per game. I put the stat out there. The Grizzlies have allowed the most opposing threes in the first 5 games of a single season for any team in NBA history. But the thing is, Keith, is that what's crazy is, and this goes again to bad luck, small sample size, whatever you want to have you, 2 of the 3 best defensive teams in the NBA last year were the Milwaukee Bucks and the Memphis Grizzlies. But to start this year, the Bucks now have the worst defensive rating in NBA history as of right now. The Grizzlies are allowing more threes than anybody else has. Now, if you look at the stats, it's actually league-wide. There are several teams right now who are allowing the most threes, in NBA history if this were to be a full season already. So it is small sample size. It is bad luck. But the question that I have, and, I talk, I enjoy going into Grizzly spaces every now and then, and it's a question that I think many have. I understand the overhelping to a point. But when you have Jaren Jackson Jr. and Marcus Smart as the catalyst of your defense, why is that not freeing up your other 3 defenders to go out and contest more threes? And I think that we're doing it more often. I saw us doing it last night against Utah, but it's just when they did last night against Utah, then Utah turned into the 15-16 Warriors. So it's like you can't buy an option right now that's working for Memphis, which goes to the fact that I think times are going to get better as regression sets in place.
Of course, no teams can keep shooting what they're shooting against the Grizzlies. Like you said, we're last in 3-pointers allowed per game. We're 29th, second to last in 3-point percentage allowed per game. There's a lot of frustration over our decision to maybe guard the paint and like when you pick your poison, the Grizzlies traditionally have been allowing some 3-pointers, but specifically we have allowed above the break 3-pointers, which are the harder 3-pointers. Like the Grizzlies under Taylor Jenkins historically defensively have prevented corner 3-pointers, which are the most deadly 3-pointers. But this formula of, I do think we are, and I saw some on social media, I saw some clips on Wednesday, we are overhelping on guys and leaving maybe guys more wide open than they need to be from the 3-point line. So the Jazz made 8 out of 10 3-pointers in the first quarter on the way to that 23-point advantage at the end of the first. The Jazz for the game made 22 3-pointers. This is, one game after the Mavericks made 23 3-pointers. So 45 3-pointers allowed in the last 2 games. That is the most over any 2-game span in Grizzlies franchise history. It is the 8th most, tied for the 8th most allowed by any team ever over a 2-game span. 50, by the way, is the most allowed. So then we get to halftime, Shawn. This was the most points the Grizzlies have ever allowed in a half in the first half, excuse me. Famously, that end of the year Pelicans game 2 years ago, they allowed 81 in the second half. But they allowed 79 points in the first half, the most they've ever given up in the first half. This also was tied for the biggest halftime deficit they've ever faced, 33 points. So they're down 33 at halftime, Shawn. They have a field goal percentage that's 40 percentage points less than their opponent, which I'll be real, I didn't know that was possible. The Jazz shot 69% from the field in the first half on the back of a 67% from three, and what the Grizzlies shot like 28 or something, 27 or 28.
Yeah. And the crazy stat to me, you broke it down. You broke it down into real time. It was a week ago last Friday, right?
Yeah, it was last Friday.
Yeah. Last Friday, you broke it down. You said, I believe, from 9:14 to 9:18. Great perspective as always from you.
Yeah.
1 minute of game time.
Yeah, 1 minute of game time. Yeah.
The Grizzlies have had the lead through 5 games. Through 120 second half minutes so far this year, they've had the lead for one of those minutes in the second half. If you expand that to the second quarter, they've had the lead for 8 minutes and 40 so seconds of like 180 minutes or 200 maybe. But that's the thing. It's that we finally had a good first quarter against the Mavericks, and then they arguably had the best 3-point shooting effort of an opponent against us ever. So we felt like the first quarter or offense was going to be better. It wasn't. It's inconsistencies early in the game, and this team is just not talented enough right now to overcome the holes that they're digging for themselves.
Yeah. So they're 0-5, of course, the only winless team in the NBA. When you're winless, that's when you rack up all those horrible stats. You know, being last in net rating, last in offensive rating. Their worst start in franchise history, by the way, was 2002. They lost their first 13 games. That led to Sidney Lowe getting fired and then bringing in Hubie Brown. I made an observation, and I said it on the show before, like the last time they started the last 2 times they started 0-3, not only 0-5, they made midseason coaching changes. I'm not saying they're going to make a midseason coaching change. I'm not saying they need to. These are unusual circumstances. Taylor Jenkins I don't think is to blame for any of Ja Morant's actions, for him not being available. I do think organizationally, as we keep beating the dead horse, they made some missteps being like, all right, we now got rid of competent NBA players and we brought in guys we hope are good. And that's the big issue. I'm still tickled that Zaire Williams has looked good. I thought he was fine in this game. Like, Zaire Williams has become a competent NBA player, but that doesn't mean he's a good player. That doesn't mean he's an above average NBA player. And all of that causes you to be like, all right, yeah, we're 0-5, but we're missing a lot of guys. However, the flip side to that statement, like, people are like, oh, listen, we're missing 4 of our top 9 players or something, or like, you know, the flip side to that, and this is where I am a little bit bothered. We do have 3 of our best 4 players.
Yeah.
And I think most teams, like, if you flip it around, you're like, hey, if you take away 4 of any team's top 8, not going to be very good. I hear you. But I think if you flip that statement upside down and say, all right, if any team has 3 of their best 4 players, they're generally going to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you have 3 of your best 4 players, generally your 9th through 15th guy can step up and do something.
Yeah.
And right now, that part's bleak, man.
It absolutely is.
You talked about the 4 minutes of real, actual lifetime that we've been ahead. It had a second half lead. I said in the last 6 months, that also ties in Game 6 against the Lakers, where we were down by 40. That was the worst first quarter ever, by the way. I think we were down. No, actually, that was Game 3. We were down by 26 after the first quarter. Game 6, we lost by 40, but it was more of a slow destruction.
Correct. Yeah. But I mean, Keith, the thing is that even, you know, that you want to talk about the word microcosm, you know, that 1 minute that we had the lead, the Grizzlies, after, you know, despite last night, they got fight in them. They came back against the Pelicans, Denver, Washington, and Dallas. You had to feel that they were going to potentially win one of those games coming back. But again, every single time we make a push to come back, there's a 3 that's hit. And the Denver game was the best example of it. We get up 98-97, and then I think Joker as well as Jamal Murray hit those 3. So it's just, it's that 3-point defense, and you're correct. You're talking about 3 of our best 4 players still being here, though you can make the argument Ja Morant is our best player, But even with John Morant, we are a defensive first team. The strength of this team with John Morant is our defense, but we're not stopping anybody giving up threes at this rate. Even if regression occurs, adjustments are going to have to be made. And to the point of Taylor Jenkins, I mentioned before, over the past 2 seasons, if you look from December 1st on, we make adjustments to where then we're one of the best at
that's true.
rate. But those adjustments have to be made now this year. It's more crucial those adjustments be made earlier in the season, and they certainly have not been made as of yet. That's where I think the frustration, and a fair frustration, is with Taylor Jenkins and his staff.
So looking at some of the performances of our best players, Jaren Jackson Jr. So far this year, we've been outscored by 47 points when Jaren Jackson Jr. has been on the court.
Yeah.
I thought that was impossible.
Yeah.
I really thought Jaren was above that. And the more concerning to me, and maybe tell me if this is a trend or not. All right, this is the small sample size. So you know, statistically, this is probably just noise. But in Jaren's last 5 road games, including the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
This is the Jazz game and the Wizards game this year, and then the 3 road games against the Lakers last year. Jaren hasn't made more than 33% of his field goal attempts in any of them. We're now at 5 straight games, 5 straight road games, including the playoffs, of Jaren Jackson Jr. being 33% or worse on his field goal attempts. He was 5 out of 17 against the Jazz. He had, in my opinion, favorable matchups a lot. Like, he can beat Walker Kessler off the dribble.
Yes.
Like, I don't consider the Jazz to be a good defensive team. A lot of it was 3-pointers. He was 1 for 8 from 3. So is that a trend? Is that a concerning thing, or is that just a total aberration?
I don't know, because you go into the playoffs last year, and I know that people say, don't read too much into March and, the end of the season in the NBA. I get that. But if you go back, if you look from right after January 1st of last year through the end of the 22-23 season, Jaren averaged 20 points over nearly half a year. So he had his best offensive stretch last year. And then, he played against Anthony Davis in that series. I think the Lakers were clearly the better defensive team. And Jaren was the focal point of the offense at that point, or the focal point of the defense stopping, and they did. Daniel Gafford, he's not anybody that Jaren shouldn't be able to do. I think a bit of it is noise, but I do also think that, to your point, the thing is, though, is that even if a 5-game sample size is noise, that is 5 crucial games, both in the playoffs as well as when we need for Jaren to step up as a true offensive difference maker, and he's not doing it on the road. So I think it's a good point. So it's a bit of noise, but it also is enough of a reference point to say, hey, how we're utilizing you, Jaren, it needs to change for us to get you going more consistently, especially early. I think, for the longest time, Keith, I thought that Jaren's best offensive approach was to get the outside game going and then be able to take people off the dribble. I now think it's to get the inside game going after how good he was inside last year, and then being able to maybe rotate out for a couple of 3-point shots, as the game progresses. But they've got to get him going early, inside, especially early in games, to get that offensive flow going. You've got to figure out how to make more shots early for this team.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And one good thing that Jaren has done is he has gotten to the line and those things, and he got to the line again. So, he is attacking, and I thought it was actually much improved from some of the earlier losses where they actually were giving Jaren the ball kind of on post-ups and getting in the paint. But, of course, because of the 3-point shooting, the stats look pretty bad. And then the overall team 3-point shooting. Now, you talk about, the offense. I think this is a huge question mark. We've said it several times already. They're last in the NBA in offensive rating. They're shooting so many threes per game.
Yeah.
And Shawn, they're not making any of them.
Yeah.
And in this game, they set a franchise record for attempts, 3-point attempts in a game. They took 54 3-pointers. The previous high for a game was 50. And guess what? By the way, they missed a franchise record 40. They missed 40 3-pointers in a game for the first time ever. And we were commiserating on Fast Break Breakfast earlier this week, where my co-host John was like, I'm pretty scared our new offensive goal is to just have bad shooters shoot and hope that they sometimes go in. I know Luke Canard's missing his threes, more on him in a second, but I too have the concern, I don't think these are huge aberration shooting numbers. Jaren's going to put up a 2 for 6, 2 for 7, 1 for 8. Xavier Tillman, work in progress. Marcus Smart's a career not good 3-point shooter. It can't all be Bane and Canard. Yeah. And so what's your, at least, so going back to concern levels, like what's your concern level about the Grizzlies' new offense just being, hey, let's spam 3-pointers and hope some of them go in?
So I'm all for the idea of 35 to 40 3-point attempts a game. And I do think from what you're seeing that you are seeing the offense implemented to the point to where we're getting more open shots. But the thing is that may also be influenced by teams just trusting that we're not going to shoot well. But I thought that we had a very good chance of being one of the deeper 3-point shooting Grizzlies rosters that we've seen in franchise history. But if you go back to how the Lakers defended us in the playoffs, if you go to how teams are defending us now, we're not hitting open shots. And if we're not hitting open shots, teams are going to be just fine. No matter how good those 3-pointers are, they're going to continue to let us make it. Now, one thing I like is how much we're emphasizing the corner 3. I thought that the corner 3 would always be kind of a next level opportunity for us to bring balance to our offense. So I like that. But the above the break 3 is what's killing us right now. We can't hit above the break 3s consistently. Aldama, Canard should be able to do that. So having better shooters take more of your shots, that should help out the formula. But in general, the depth that at least I can speak to that I thought we had, it certainly is not there. I think Luke will be fine. I know we'll talk about him in a moment. But yes, it is a bit of a concern. If we're not hitting 3s with how many open shots that we're having right now, positive regression could come our way, but it's a bit concerning for sure.
Yeah, and not to get carried away by the small sample size, I rewatched every one of the Grizzlies field goal attempts this morning. And honestly, Desmond Bane missed a couple that were totally wide open, but like Jaren had wide open 3-pointers that did not go in. Luke Canard had wide open 3-pointers that did not go in. So Canard, all right. So Canard returns finally after being in the concussion protocol for several days. He missed his first 7 field goal attempts, meaning he started this season by missing his first 12 field goal attempts. The NBA record is 22 straight misses to start a season, which is something I track on Fast Break Breakfast. So I was pretty excited. I don't want to say I was rooting for Luke to miss. Okay, I was definitely at that. What? Hey, you're down. You're down 30. I'm going to have my fun. Okay. The game was not on the line.
For bad NBA history, you acknowledge when it happens, but you don't cheer for it, Keith. But listen,
I'm a sicko. That was right in my wheelhouse. So he makes his third
negative fantasy league. So I'll give you that. So
excuse me. He missed his first 12 field goal attempts of the season. And he's now 1 out of 14 this year.
Yeah.
If you include preseason, Shawn, he's 6 for 31. Excuse me, 5 for 31 on 3-pointers, regular season and preseason, which is also the only time we've seen him take 3-pointers since he injured his shoulder in the playoffs. I'm gonna throw it to you again. Is that just small sample size noise, or are we concerned?
I'm not concerned at all when it comes to Luke Canard. If there was concern there from what happened in the playoffs, I would imagine that the Grizzlies would have addressed it more.
Okay.
But again, the reason why I'm not concerned is because if you go back to last year, and I know that I'm harping on that. I know that I'm harping on last year, but Luke Canard was averaging 5 threes a game last year, Keith, as a Grizzly, and he made 55% of them. Now,
I know.
But
we knew that wasn't going to happen forever.
Correct. But I also don't think it's this polarizing. I don't think that the Grizzlies are going to sit here and ultimately regret moving on from not paying Dylan Brooks $20 million a year to make the trade for Marcus Smart and also feature Luke Canard more. I just don't think that equation.
You did not, Shawn. You did not say Dylan Brooks' full name. It's Dylan Brooks, NBA leader in 3-point percentage 2023-24.
Forgive my disrespect to the villain. Yes.
The villain is shooting 62% from 3.
3-point connoisseur DB.
Thank you. Carrying over his incredible World Cup performance in the FIBA World Cup, where he also had unbelievable shooting performances. I don't get too carried away about when players leave the Grizzlies, they remember how to shoot.
Yeah.
But there's at least an eyebrow fully raised now.
Yeah.
About Dylan Brooks making all his threes at the FIBA World Cup and now making all his threes on the Rockets. He has the same effective field goal percentage as Nikola Jokic and Steph Curry this season. it's interesting. Let's take
there may be powers that be that are working right now that we can't comprehend with just how bad this story is playing out. Comic book fan, and Keith, I believe that you are as well. We've entered into some type of multiverse that is just the 7 layers of hell right now.
It feels like a dark timeline.
It does.
It's like, hey, did you know that Dylan Brooks is making 62% of all his field goal attempts this season? And Rockets fans are screaming for him to shoot more. Anyways, Shawn, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to wrap up our thoughts on the loss to the Jazz, the early start, and the signing of Bismack Biyombo.
Bismack!
Hey guys, just a little break from the show to tell you that for a short time, Underdog Fantasy has massively increased their new user sign-up bonus. Now, if you sign up using promo code FBBF or by using the link in this episode's description, Underdog will double your opening deposit up to $500. Plus, in certain states, they will also give you a free higher or lower pick. So, if you want to win big playing fantasy sports, or you want to be like me and just play very, very small stakes, it's a great time to try out Underdog. Again, it used to be they would match your opening deposit up to $100, but now they will match that opening deposit all the way up to $500. So, there's never been a better time to try out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code FBBF. And again, they will double your opening deposit all the way up to $500. All right, Shawn. A few more things about the Jazz game. Yeah, whatever. You said they fought hard, came back, and they've done it in all the games. I am also a guy who doesn't basically credit anyone for doing that because, I watch the NBA. I watch every team. Every team plays hard. Every team fights back. When the shots start falling, you're like, oh, well, we fought back. I mean, Taylor Jenkins said it after the game. He was happy that they competed, but there's no moral victories at this level. There's no moral victories. Desmond Bane, he continues, I think, playing well. Not much to really say about his game. He was still carrying us. I still feel like the degree of difficulty of his shots, he's making them generally, and that bothers me. Xavier Tillman, huge letdown the last 2 games.
Yes.
And I don't know what's that is about. 2 things about his performance this game. He missed a wide open layup. And he's traditionally he struggled at finishing. That's been one of his big takeaways for me is he doesn't finish very well. But the Grizzlies were actually kind of fine when he was on the court. They only got outscored by 7 when he was on the court, and that includes the start of the first quarter and the start of the third quarter where we played these long stints. I will tap the sign. The foul trouble is only in your head sign. We're down 25, and they took Tillman out with 3 fouls in the first half. And it's guys, we're down 25. Yeah. Maybe just let him go. Just let him go and we'll see. Hey, all right, if we don't cut into the lead, I understand it. So even Tillman with the miss is not a big deal. Talking more about the Grizzlies' depth. Part of the issues for this game was Derrick Rose did not play. And we found out before the game that Derrick Rose is going to be out for a week. At a minimum, they're going to reevaluate Derrick Rose in a week. And he did not look good against the Wizards. He looked awful against the Mavericks. No points and no assist, or 1 point and no assists in 14 minutes. How are you enjoying the Derrick Rose experience, Shawn?
It's great to have him back. In terms of Memphis. Now, Keith, I'm a Vols fan, so I'm not a Tigers fan. I know that the fan base is enjoying having him back. However, he's playing in a bigger role than he should right now, and that's no disrespect to Derrick Rose. It's just where he's at in his career. You're going to get the occasional stints, for a few minutes where you know that he's going to have just that natural scoring ability that he was born with. But he's not a guy that you want to shoot 10 shots a game. He's a guy that you want to hope plays efficient for you, maybe 8 to 10 minutes a game, and then you'll take that and hope that it gives the bench a little bit of an injection of offense. But it was good to see how well he played in the first 2 games. Even if overall he gave back on defense what he provided on offense. But yes, if you're wanting to expect for him to in any way, shape, or form kind of fill that Tyus Jones role while we're without John Morant, it's just not going to be there with Rose because his game just does not complement others like Tyus Jones's did. So the trade of Luke Canard for him, I'll make any day of the week. No disrespect to Rose again, but yes, him playing 20-plus minutes a game, you're likely going to see that be a net negative for the Grizzlies every single time out.
He mentioned Tyus Jones. It is concerning, a little bit concerning, how the Wizards have been destroyed in every single game except for the game they beat the Grizzlies. Absolutely. But I thought it was fun. I was joking about this morning. Tyus Jones right now leads the NBA in raw plus minus. Leads the NBA in negative. Like he unfortunately he's last in the NBA in raw plus minus. And the joke was like, oh, you want to be the starting point guard? How about the starting point guard in hell? Enjoy that, Tyus. I'm not blaming Tyus for any of those numbers.
But it has to be with the fact that you almost have the anti-Tyus playing next to him in Jordan Poole.
100%. 100%.
Extra layer, yeah.
The Derrick Rose thing, like you said, yeah, he needs a smaller role. And I honestly, I was against the Derrick Rose signing. I was shocked when it happened, and then I got at least some pushback of people being like, "Come on, you're just hating on him and you're believing what you saw in the box scores. He still has something in the tank," and he flashed in that first preseason game. He played really well in that fourth quarter against the Nuggets. He is the reason the Grizzlies actually held a lead for 4 minutes of actual lifetime, 1 minute of game time. But it's also doing the flip side again. It took Derrick Rose playing well for 6 minutes for the Grizzlies to get a lead. And that is, you said you thought it's going to be a smaller role. I am currently sitting here on November 2nd, stunned that the Grizzlies have depended so much on Derrick Rose and Jacob Gilyard. In this game, no Derrick Rose. I'm like, all right, well, maybe they'll do a thing where you got Conchar and Canard all handling the ball together, a no point guard lineup. No. We're in the midst. We're 20% of the way through the Derrick Rose suspension. The John Morant suspension. And the actual plan, the on-court plan, was to have Derrick Rose and Jacob Gilyard play a lot. No one, as far as I know, most people did not believe the Derrick Rose signing was about on-court production. Everyone's listen, it's about being a mentor towards Ja. Maybe Ja's camp wanted somebody like Derrick Rose, or specifically Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose comes out and says, I'm not a babysitter. We're like, okay, sure. That has a negative connotation, but you are here to mentor, and you are here to lead, and you are here to be a big brother, be like a veteran presence in the locker room. And if Ja comes back after 25 games, if Ja stays on the straight and narrow, so to speak, all year, maybe you call the Derrick Rose signing a success. But if you believe them, anyone who says no, he's here to help us on the court, and you look at this team through the first 5 games and say, wait, we're in the first half of these games and we're depending on Derrick Rose and Jacob Gilyard to fill in for Ja Morant. That is eye-opening to me, where I'm like, that goes back to what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that the thought would have been, that, hey, there are teams that go through stretches, especially contending teams, where they go through stretches where they don't have a pure point guard. And I understand that. But you're also, with those teams, you're talking about the fact that they've got high quality wings that are, good at facilitation, good at playmaking, things such as that. The Grizzlies, unfortunately, don't have that luxury outside of Desmond Bane as of right now. And again, I do think that once you get Aldama, once you get Canard fully implemented in back, that helps decision making, better shot takers, things like that. Everybody kind of goes back to the line. But yes, I think it's both. In terms of the Grizzlies didn't expect they were going to have to rely on Rose with the injuries that have occurred, but also the simple fact is that the writing is clearly on the wall. Derrick Rose is not someone that you can expect to even be your 8th or 9th man in a regular season rotation. It's just not there for him health-wise or production-wise. So,
that again goes to you can't cite injury problems as being bad luck in some of these situations.
Fair.
Derrick Rose played 4 games in 6 nights to start the year. This is a 35-year-old who basically averages 30 games a season for the last 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Derrick Rose missing games is a given.
Yeah.
You knew coming into the year, and again, the Steven Adams thing, nothing could have been done. but you knew coming into the year, this is a concern. Steven Adams' health is a concern. And to maybe not make any moves to address that, although they have done this. I've been talking for forever. I appreciate you letting me just scream at you for like 45 minutes. Let's wrap up the show. Apologies for not mentioning Vince Williams Jr. enough. I saw you with your 4 stocks. Okay. He did. If he hadn't missed a corner 3 in the first half and airballed a 3 badly, I'd be more excited about Vince Williams Jr. But let's talk 2 things to get out of here. The new jerseys officially came out, and the Grizzlies did officially sign Bismack Biyombo. First, let's start with the jerseys, Shawn. You are, as you said, you're a Tennessee Volunteer fan. How do you feel about all that black and gold?
It's not Vandy. I'm not going to give you that.
It's like literally Vandy's. I think on the color tone, the hex number, I think it's the same gold as the Vanderbilt jerseys. But okay.
It's not the worst. I'll be honest with you. I'll go on record as saying the Kings jerseys this year for the in-season tournament and the city jerseys. The Kings have the best city jerseys.
They're beautiful.
Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal. I may get me a Sabonis one. The Grizzlies I'm fine with. You know, the black silver Memphis Grizzlies that they had and the blue ones that they had in the past too that had the silver lettering, I believe. Those I think are the best jerseys that I've seen over the past couple of years. But these are fine. I'm excited to see what the court's going to look like. I think that it's a pretty cool color scheme. I would have liked for them to use one of the different blue tones that we have in our franchise colors instead of some of the silver. But I'm fine with it. I enjoy it. And then the Bismack Biyombo signing, listen, we've got to stop bleeding so many points when it comes to the bench. And I think he at least helps with that. He's not going to give you a lot on offense. He's not even, I think, going to be a consistent lob threat. Is he someone this season over the rest of this season I think offers more value than what Kenneth Lofton's going to give you in his roster spot? Yes, I do. Listen, I'm a fan of Kenneth Lofton's game. I'm a fan of his skill set, but it's just not there in terms of him adding value. And right now, the Grizzlies cannot waste any roster spots when it comes to finding someone that can add value. I know people will say Conchar and others may be, more suitable to let go, but I think the Bismack Biyombo, at least with his defense, you've got good rim protection for most of the game now with him and Jaren. I think that he can add a bit of value, and if he can at least offer some rebounding and some rim protection, you'll take anything that can offer, better defense for your bench unit.
So one thing that's weird about the Grizzlies so far is like we said all those stats that are terrible. We're last in net rating and offensive rating, and we're giving up the most 3-pointers. We've been rebounding on the defensive glass really well.
Yes, we have. Which
is like super surprising because like that was one thing where I thought we'd be terrible at that. So I was wrong about that at least through 5 games. Like maybe it's an aberration. But like, yeah, Bismack, I think it's important to let Jaren play as many minutes as possible at the 4.
Yes.
Because like, again, Jaren at the 5 works when Brandon Clark is your 4, because maybe Brandon Clark is actually the center. It works when you have like a big wing, but we don't have those really. And so I think Bismack is going to probably step right into the rotation. I think once Santi Aldama returns, I mean, how mild was this ankle sprain, Santi? It's been a week. Let's go, brother. So when Santi returns, I do think that Biyombo will probably be that 10th man, and will only have one of those wings off the bench. I mean, maybe, I don't know if it's a Conchar or Roddy situation. Roddy got the first, basically because he was the power forward. He got in first in this game in the rotation. But the Bismack Biyombo signing should help. You mentioned Kenneth Lofton Jr., who I thought was fine in this game. He missed shots, but whatever. It was all garbage time. The question is going to be, after 25 games, do they keep Bismack and then let Kenneth Lofton Jr. go? Also notably, and Mitchell brings it up in this our playback chat, and it's something I was going to mention because the news just broke that like they signed Bismack to $1 million guaranteed, but a $5 million deal. So they used, I don't know if they used part of their MLE or if they used part of the injured player exception to overpay a little bit, arguably overpay Bismack. You can trade if that $5 million gets guaranteed.
Yeah.
You can now trade him for a player who makes $10 million because it doubles. Actually, I think it's $10 million, $250,000 because you actually add a little. So like, this is actually a trade chip. This is what I was screaming about for the Derrick Rose signing. Like, don't sign him for 2 years at the minimum. Give him everything because we want matching salary. So maybe, just maybe, they'll be able to package Bismack It at least gives them options. Like that's part of like what the Sixers trade was when they got all these players back who make, it's movable salary. They got back, Marcus Morris and Batum and Covington, and maybe those guys are going to play in the rotation, but also instead of having this giant salary that's hard to move, you don't have medium-sized salaries. And so like, that's just another little twist on it. Yes, I think Bismack is here to play.
Yeah.
But also, if needs be, I'm pretty sure as long as that money gets fully guaranteed, they can then swap him out for maybe bringing in something. And so at the very least, Shawn, we can play on the trade machine. We have that.
One of the parish pillars to rosters construction success: overpay the 1-year deal guys for trade opportunities. Overpay them. I remember you and Parker's podcast from several months ago, and it's a great point because if you put Bismack potentially with Jitty as well as one of Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, you're now in that $20 million range to where, you'd probably have to add an asset or two, but you can go out and get, what the Hawks want to move off of Clint Capella. The Bulls want to potentially, go into a fire sale. Do we want Nikola Vucevic, for a few years? You've got different structures you can go after. Do we want to go out and get one of the Sixers guys, maybe a Robert Covington or somebody like that? But to your point, it just gives you the opportunity to mix and match some money matching options for the trade deadline. So it's a great point.
I can't remember the rules. Can we aggregate Bismack? Do we have to wait a little bit? Cause like
December 15th, don't you? I believe.
So yeah, I can't remember if it's when the specific date is for like in-season signings, but like anyways, at some point, hopefully it will be trade rules legal. Like you could trade Bismack and Kenneth Lofton Jr. for Clint Capella or something, which would be, a talent upgrade. The Hawks might be willing to do that because they just have luxury tax concerns going forward. But Shawn, let's wrap it up, man. I appreciate you hanging out. Tell people where they can find your stuff. You're a great Grizzlies mind, and you always have a good perspective that you can bring to all things Grizzlies.
Yeah, at StatsSAC on Twitter. I haven't gotten to the Instagram game and all that different stuff because I'm as technologically challenged as can be. But I do my writing over at BCM Grizzlies. I do Grizzly Bear Blues Live as well. Keith will be on there at some point. A new fatherhood on my end always kind of gets in the way of that. But yeah, just you can find me at StatsSAC on Twitter and at BluffCityMedia.co when it comes to writing and podcasts. And Keith, I'll leave you with this because I think that you hit the nail on the head. What really stands out for this Grizzlies team is it's just a matter of moving players kind of down into their more natural roles. In time, I think Ja coming back, Santi and Luke getting healthy, and then replacing one of Zaire and Tillman in the starting lineup with the trade that you do at a deadline. I think that if we can weather the storm enough and be able to do those things, I think we'll be just fine. We're not going to be second in the West this year, but I definitely think that come playoff time, if those things work out, which I think there's a definite reality they can, I think we're going to be okay. We just need to get that one win, and hopefully we'll get a few of them over the weekend in Portland. But always a pleasure, Keith. Thanks.
That's right. Yeah, appreciate your time, Shawn. Grizzlies fans will watch the Trailblazers and Grizzlies on Friday night. Don't miss the game. Anyways, Shawn, appreciate you coming on as always. Talk to you soon, and thanks everybody for listening.